You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's now time for our main event. Take a trip back in time to the golden era of the wrestling world with your host, Chris Techrold Blade. Welcome to Once Upon a Turnbuckle.
Welcome to another very special episode of Once Upon a Turnbuckle, and I get to turn my attention to another power in the British indie scene, which I'm really looking forward to. Not only a performer himself, but he's also one of the founders of Slammasters Wrestling. Welcome to the show, John Walker. How you doing, mate?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Oh yeah, all good. The end of another very cold day. My favorite time of year, I won't lie. So I'm really looking forward to kind of getting into finding a lot more out about yourself. I've become more familiar with Slammasters recently, as I've kind of opened up my eyes, as it were, in the last few months to what's going on in the British indie wrestling scene. And I know you just come off the back of a very exciting show, which we'll talk about. But I guess without launching into song, the best place to start is at the beginning. So for yourself, firstly, then, wrestling wise, when did you first discover it as a fan? Were you a fan beforehand?
I was, yes. I go way back. To be honest, I can remember a time because I got a brother who's a little bit older than me. I don't really know how he got into it, but I have memories of like SummerSlam 91.
Okay.
We didn't have Sky, but someone in the street had Sky, and I think they recorded it for like everyone in the street. So I can remember we had that on VHS, so we didn't have it for long, so we had to then like give it to someone else and then to someone else. And so I can remember that, like vaguely remember that. Obviously, I over the years I ended up buying it on VHS, DVD. So like I can now remember it and appreciate it, but I can remember it just being a thing.
Yeah.
And we used to watch really early 90s WCW as well.
Cool.
Because I used to be on like 2 or 3 in the morning on a Saturday going into Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So I can remember we used to watch that, and we started buying like the figures and things. So I don't think I like really appreciated it for a few years after it, but I can remember like quite early days of just knowing roughly what it was and wasting hours on end playing figures of people I didn't really know, but that's what you do when you're young in the 90s, isn't it? Wrestling
brings everyone together. So
exactly.
Yeah. That's a really cool. I love that show, SummerSlam 91. It's September 91 that I first got into it, actually. So it was literally that point. I remembered some of my earliest memories, Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, still way
Jake
up there.
Snake like the match.
That's brilliant. Well. I know it was a fantastic. Say what you will about the tail end of 91. I know some people are a bit iffy on it because of what was happening with Hogan and Flair. I really like the storytelling, and they are some cracking matches. So a great place to start. Ideal.
Yeah.
Ideal. So sort of, going on from then, and was it always in you that you, or eventually anyway, that you wanted to be involved in wrestling yourself, or is it something that kind of grew as you got a bit older?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into it. So going back to like childhood, I'm sure at some point, like we used to go over grandparents, and coincidentally then, I don't know who else used to be at the house, but occasionally they'd be like all other people who may have been distant relatives of her or whatever, but they were all like really into wrestling, but not necessarily American, so they must have all been into like World of Sports and things like that. So they'd always talk about it. Again, I was really young, so I didn't have a clue what they were talking about, to be honest. And I can remember, but then they would all say, "Oh, so do you want to be a wrestler?" Like laughing, joking, and I would always say no.
Right.
So I didn't really have any desire to get into it, which I guess at the time there wasn't say an obvious route for a young boy from South Wales, I suppose, to get into it. Because I suppose at the time the only guy from the UK that you would see on TV would have been British Bulldog. So one person out of the whole of the UK. I know a little bit later than Regal. Well, Regal was probably out in WCW at the time, but
he was almost there, yeah, sort of, yeah, mid 90s or something. But I made that point to my guest yesterday that up until probably last 10, 15 years, British wrestling was only really represented by those two.
Exactly. Yeah. And then like how I got into it then as well was a coincidence as well. As in like getting into the training side of it. It happened by chance. I'd always been into fitness stuff, but I fell off the wagon quite dramatically one year. So I spent about a year getting relatively fit again and in decent shape. And me and my now fiance, my brother, his partner, my nephew went to one of the Butlins WWE weekends.
Okay, yeah.
And probably a few too many pints in. It was in a real throwaway match. It was the Usos and Ryback against the Wyatt family, excluding Bray.
Okay.
So it was Braun, who I think had only recently debuted.
Yeah.
Rowan and Harper, and
right.
the Usos weren't really feeling it because you could see them casually talking on the apron while Ryback was doing his feed me more thing. Okay. And for some reason I looked over and I said, I reckon I could give this a bit of a go. I think at the time I was getting like slightly aware of some training schools and stuff just by seeing things.
Yeah.
So I had in my head that I'd give it a go. And really strangely, obviously Facebook listens to your conversations.
Yeah.
Because a day or so later, I saw an advert for training for Welsh wrestling. And I started not too long after that. So that would have been, the wrestling would have been November, the wrestling weekend would be like November 2015. So I started February 2016.
Right.
So not too long ago.
No. And am I right if I have read this right? When you made your debut at one of your first shows, I'm thinking if this is a little further down the line, Cody Rhodes and Doug Williams were involved.
Yeah. So I trained for 2016. So I started at Welsh. It didn't really work out for me, but I met some people there who then found Knockout Pro Wrestling in Blackwood.
Uh-huh.
And they developed a relationship with Exposure Wrestling. So we would go to their shows just as ring crew, help out, just get a taste for shows. And on December of 2016, Exposure booked a bit of a super show in fairness. So it had Cody Rhodes and Doug Williams main event. Wow. Robbie E was on the cards. Obviously he's in NXT now as Robert Stone. There was a few other good names there as well. So Lion Kids, obviously he's a bit of a veteran of sorts on the UK scene. There was a young Zaya Brookside was on the cards.
Wow.
Kenny Williams was on the cards. Lizzie Ebo was on there, but she was Lizzie Styles then, and Jack Jester I think was on there as well. So it was a pretty full lineup to be fair, especially like seeing people on that card while they've gone on to doing as well. So it was a pretty full bill. I went as a trainee to help out, and I was doing some interviews or something backstage, and something happened on the way down where Lion Kid and Robbie E, for some reason, they were going to have a one-on-one or maybe a triple threat, but all of a sudden it needed to become a tag.
Okay. And
for whatever reason, Nigel, the promoter at Exposure, asked me if I had my gear, and obviously I had it in the car because I was told to bring it.
Yeah,
Always bring
just
your
in
gear.
case.
That's
Yeah.
what I say to everyone else. And yeah, I ended up in about 15 minutes notice. I ended up in a tag team match on my debut with the guy, Robbie E, obviously, who was at the time TNA, now NXT. Lion Kid, who had done tours of Japan and all over Europe, the UK, and then my tag partner was Austin Isras, who's I think he's still out doing quite well in Scotland
Right.
as
So,
well. So it was a bit of a strange debut. Normally you're in a rumble, aren't you?
well,
In
quite,
front of
yeah.
10 people.
That seems to be the trend with most of the guys that I've spoken to. So, I mean, how do you mentally? You're obviously physically there because you've been training for it. How do you mentally prepare at that short notice, knowing that you're in there with experience like that?
It was probably easier, to be honest, because I didn't really have a huge amount of time to freak out that much about
No.
it. Robbie E was actually incredible as well, because a weird coincidence. I was at a training seminar of his at Knockout a few months before, so he'd like recognized me and stuff anyway, and yeah, he was just awesome. Like they made it really easy for me and said, right, just give us some heat and we'll, if you get nervous, like just tag out, whatever you do,
Right.
just tag out and just look, and give me like 2 Qs. I got one slightly late, but
Right.
they covered it, and yeah, it made it really easy for me
That's cool.
to be honest. It could have gone so much worse than it did.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd never want to watch it back because I probably stunk. But from memory, it was okay. No one got injured. I remember I had to do a spot where Lion Kid was going to dive on me on the outside, and all I can remember as I saw him jumping through the ropes was, please just catch him. Whatever you do, do not on your debut, do not kill the Lion Kid. And,
No.
fortunately, I caught him.
Brilliant.
And that was good.
Oh, that was so it could only be, onwards and upwards after something like that. Firstly, I've got to ask, did you manage to mix with Cody and Doug at all that night? And
yes, Cody was great. Yeah, we were all in the same locker room together.
Cool.
There's absolutely no egos from either of them. Doug has worked for Exposure a few times since as well. I can remember just at that point I hadn't been booked anyway, so I think I was allowed to still just be a bit of a fan.
Right.
Just listening to their stories and like anything they would talk, and then as soon as they would talk about like a match or spot or anything, just try and just listen and just try and take anything in.
Yeah.
It was quite surreal, I suppose, just being in the same room as them at that point in my let's call it a career at that point was just strange.
What a way to start. I mean, ideal. Not many people got stories like that. So talk about who you are in the ring then. So I believe you've gone through a few changes along the way. You've been a heel, you've been a face. Have you got what do you feel most comfortable with, or just take us through how your in-ring persona has evolved through your career so far?
Well, I started off as a heel gimmick. It was Johnny Narcissist. It was it was based a lot around Mike Bennett's The Miracle gimmick. In TNA. I don't think I ever really told that many people that, but that's a lot of it was based on his stuff.
Okay.
So I was your average cocky heel. I wasn't very good at it, to be honest. Personally, looking back now, I should have been a face from day one. Obviously, when you're in the, I say obviously, but a lot of people probably don't necessarily know. But as the heel, you lead the matches, and so ultimately, you need to be more experienced or ideally, you'd be more experienced than the people in the ring with you, because then you know when to call for your hopes or the comebacks, and just guide the match that way. So I struggled because I was very inexperienced. I had a really short stint as a bit of an Adam Rose gimmick, which I absolutely detested. And then I had a little break when my boy was born, and I just fancied something different, really, because as a face, I struggled with like expressions and the facial side of it, and I was listening to again a strange coincidence. It was Lion Kids was on Flash Morgan Webster's old podcast, and he's talking about how he changed to start wearing the mask because he had similar issues. But then all of a sudden you put a mask on, you don't have to worry about your expressions as much, and you can be that little bit more, say, bigger, and you can focus on what's coming next without giving the game away too much.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, perhaps I could just give it a go. I was always a fan of like the WCW luchas as well, and I was into like Lucha Underground and stuff. I thought I could just give it a go. Like if it's awful, then go back to drawing boards, isn't it?
At least no one knows it's you. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, so I bought like a mask, like a relatively inexpensive mask and things, and credit to the people who give me the chance to give it a go. That was at Royal Imperial Wrestling. I don't know why they agreed to it, to be honest. They probably just thought I'd get out my system or something. I don't know. But yeah, I just kind of grew into it over time. So the gimmick is Necrophago. The idea of it is that I'm not Mexican, because I'm probably not very Mexican sounding with my thick Welsh accent for a start.
No.
But like someone who trained out in Mexico and like embraced the culture and things. So I'll call out bits in Spanish, but then also if I'm not really getting any reaction, so occasionally I've tried a few phrases and people just look blankly in the crowd, so I've got to change it back pretty quick. But yeah, that's the idea behind it. So I'm a Welsh luchador who trained in Mexico, and yeah, we've embraced the culture.
That's cool. And do you find you're a lot more sort of comfortable? Do you have more fun with that because you got a little bit more freedom under the mask, as it were?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I have grown into it. I think at the start I had issues with my original mask. Was a full face mask, so I couldn't see and I couldn't breathe when I was in the ring. So that was pretty challenging.
Yeah, I bet.
So I had like a one then with the mouth cut off, so all of a sudden you can breathe. Cool. And then you can show with that little bit of emotion, and if you're shouting something out, it's not just sort of like a muffled noise either, so people can kind of interact with you as well. And yeah, like I do enjoy it now. There's not that many doing the gimmick in Wales, not that many in the UK really. I know there's the London School of Lucha Libre. So when they run shows, there'll be a few on, but there's not a great deal of masked lucha gimmicks in the UK, so it helps me stand out a little bit as well.
That's cool. Have you what's your sort of in-ring style then? Are you a bit of a high flyer like them, or are you more sort of a grounded old school style mask?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. It's still evolving. So what I'm getting more towards is more like so I'll do bits of the high flying. So I've integrated some things like wheelbarrow bulldogs. I've integrated like some springboard attacks and a few other moves like that, which are synonymous with probably more so like 90s, early 2000 WCW, some early TNA things. We're trying to get into like the more aggressive style with the strikes and things as well. So trying to incorporate some of the more modern elements to it as well. One of the issues I have at the moment is a lot of times I'm in the ring with people who are now smaller than me.
Okay.
So it's obviously to do some good lucha. Ideally, you'll be in with someone bigger than you, so they can base for you. So like you're able to actually do things without risk of death. So that has played a part into like trying to like evolve the style a little bit to incorporate. So if I am say the bigger person, or we're quite evenly matched, at least then I can fall back on say some knee strikes. I can fall back on some more of the ground game as well. So yes, I'm looking to evolve it all the time, really.
That's cool. Like you say, there isn't much of it. I don't keep up with what I consider the mainstream necessarily. You know, I become a lot more interested in what's happening locally, you know, nationwide. And I masked wrestlers towards the end of the 90s. I mean, they were everywhere. There were so many of them. They were all different, but it was a bit of overkill at times. So I think, fair play. Anything to make yourself stand out, you know, wherever you're wherever you're and sort of where have you been going across the country with that gimmick?
Well, I've stuck to Wales in truth. The main reason why is I've got two kids. Well, pre-pandemic, I was out the house 12 plus hours a day. I'd come back, I'd see them quite briefly. So sticking in Wales has actually helped me a lot as to fulfill my parenting duties as well. So obviously if you're out and you're traveling a lot as well, all of a sudden your Saturday or your Sunday is fully gone. So yeah, I've stuck in Wales with it. Pre that, I done some stuff a bit further afield in Birmingham as well. Yeah, I've just stuck with Wales really doing it. I'd like to branch out a little bit now because things are a little bit different. But there's quite a few promotions in Wales at the moment as well. So
I was just going to say that it's not a bad place to be. I think to base yourself by the looks of it. The more I've been finding out about the scene up there, it just kind of seems to have exploded. And it brings me nicely onto the sort of the next part of this. Really, is because you've got an active part in growing the Welsh indie wrestling scene because, as I said at the top of the show, you are one of the guys behind Slammasters Wrestling. So sort of go back to the beginning of that venture then. When did the idea for your own promotion come, first of all?
Okay, well, I've never had any, kind of like being a wrestler, I kind of had no desire ever to run a promotion or anything. It was one evening, me and D, so Big D, who teams with Q-Ball as Jenske. We were working a show together, and for whatever reason, we were just talking, and we looked around. I think in the room at the time, there must have been people talking about their matches. There must have been people talking about other shows. Just listening into a few conversations, really. And it was either me who, I'm pretty sure I said to him, I reckon we could do a show.
Right.
And I think the response was, yeah, probably could. And like nothing more said about it there and then. A couple of days later, one of us followed up with the other and said, well, should we do it? Thought, yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll give it a go. There was the scene in South Wales, so that was 2019, was a bit different to how it is now. So it wasn't that great a place to be in truth at the time. It was quite fractured, and there was a lot of, if you work this promotion, you can't work this promotion. Right. You can't talk to these people because they are affiliated with this promotion. Right. So like you were all quite siloed, and like the concept of, say, someone from one in training school being on a show from another training school, it wasn't really a thing en masse. It's quite different now. So we just thought, right, well, we'll run a show, and we are ultimately ourselves. We are just workers, so we'll open it to anyone, really. We don't care, because if someone moans at us, then we'll just deal with it there and then.
Sure.
So we managed to make contact with people that we hadn't met before. So in addition to, say, the people that we knew, which would have been mostly people from Knockout Pro Wrestling, which we trained at. We started putting stuff on Facebook and things, and people then from Dragon Pro guys used to get out a little bit, some other promotions in Wales, but for whatever reason they weren't really then getting out. Right. So they would work Dragon Pro, they work their shows, and then they would work some shows like slightly further away. So something had obviously gone on somewhere. Right. Then all of a sudden we had some guys from Dragon Pro working with guys from Knockout, which it doesn't sound like a big thing, but in 2019, in the summer of 2019, it was actually a good result to get people together, and we met people for the first time just from people saying, any spots? Thought, well, yes, if you want to be involved, we'll sort it out. The show did okay as well. We had about between about 70 and 80 in, which doesn't sound like a big number, but again,
First show.
at the time in
Yeah.
South Wales, summer 2019, shows were getting like 50 people, quite frequently
Right.
less than 50 people as well. So
Yeah.
it was a pretty good result back then.
Cool.
Yeah, we like united, we got, at least we got people from different schools in the ring together and talking to each other
So
as well.
so at the time when you said sort of prior to this, that really was almost like a no-go. Was there promotions in particular sort of making that so, or was it just rule of thumb? Why did that change?
I
around
don't
about
know.
this time?
In truth, I don't know whether or not, say the Dragon Pro side of things. Maybe they had a bad experience with, they may have sent people out to a promotion and may not have been great, and perhaps they were just very protective.
Right.
Then. So we must have built a decent bit of credibility with them off that. There was things as well. I know at the time some promotions didn't like each other as well.
Right.
So it was that side of things. So
Yeah.
if you work on their show, we're not having you back, which
Right.
is never great. But if, say, one promotion is offering you, or could offer you, say, monthly shows, and this other promotion could offer you, I don't know, one every other month, then you're obviously not going to do that one if you're going to lose all these other bookings elsewhere. So it just wasn't a great place to be involved in at the time, in truth.
So it sounds like it's turned around, and whether it is that there's a few of you like yourself doing your bit that's helped that happen. Then brilliant. Everyone wins, don't they? So
I think so, because on the second one, then a couple of months later, we took it that step further as well, and so we had guys from the Exist promotion, so that's All Style Training Academy as well. So they're a bit further away, so they were based in Swansea. So we had Knockout guys, we had Dragon Pro guys, and we had a guy from Royal Imperial as well. I'm pretty sure that. Oh, and we had some guys who mainly worked Welsh wrestling as well. So I think that was the first time that ever, like, people from each of these places was represented in one as well. Cool. So yeah, we like to think we did something for the scene, but it was probably all coincidental, really. But at least we can say
you did your bit. Take credit where it's due as well. Oh, well done. Cool. So sort of from I suppose we're getting to the point in the timeline. Then the obvious question: COVID came along as a promotion that just starting to get off the ground and gain a bit of traction. What happened to you guys then when that hit? What fresh challenges? Stating the obvious, what fresh challenges did that bring?
Quite a few. So we didn't actually run a show in 2020. Our show was scheduled for the Sunday when the UK was locked down on like the Wednesday or the Thursday.
Oh, okay.
So the weekend before, Attack ran a show in Gateys, and it was really well attended and everything. There was obviously murmurs that something wasn't quite right going on, but no one really knew. Well, I'm pretty sure no one knew what ultimately was going to unfold. So and they had some guys from New Japan, I believe, over. So like in an alternate reality, Slammasters would have run the week before.
Right.
We would have ended up with guys from New Japan on the show as well. I'm just pretending I would have reached out and sorted it, but like in a strange reality, that would have been a thing. But I'd booked up the shows. I think we had like 5 or 6 shows booked, talented, or the bulk of the talent in place for them as well. And then all of a sudden, nothing, no idea as well what was happening. So it was difficult as well, because at the time people thought, it's only going to be a few weeks next. I remember like getting sent home from work, and a few of us were joking, see you next week. like this is not going to last very long.
It was better. A few weeks off work. That's what everyone thought they were going to get. And
a few weeks from Football Manager, and we'll all be back to normal.
That's it.
But, and all of a sudden, then he was thinking, we're getting in contact. Said, right, well, you had this for April. It's not going to happen for April. Do you think we'll put this in for June? Think, okay, fine. obviously then I've got to message everyone who was going to be there and say, look, we don't know if this is going to be on. Can you pencil this in your diary? Just in case the next morning, yay, the world's back to normal and everyone gets booked up again. So that was my story for a lot of 2020 until I just thought, just give up, trying to do this. I was getting sick of just messaging, like ultimately same message, change the date.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that was everyone was doing that because no one had a clue what was going on.
No.
And obviously then we had the speaking out that come out in June. It did affect Slammasters, in truth. Some people, not many, that we worked with were involved in that. Okay. So we ultimately lost part of our roster, and there was an ongoing issue as well, which ultimately meant that we don't work with people that were either on the first or the second show pre-COVID.
Right.
And it also affected us on the run up to the comeback show because we had people booked and then had some things brought to our attention about them as well. So then we thought, no, we can't have you either. Okay. So it has been challenging from that side of things. And as well, it's a bit strange because in Wales as well, because typically we're about 3 weeks behind what was going on with England as well.
Yeah.
So we obviously we read things with England, like things are allowed to run again. The rules are X percentage capacity and things like that.
Yeah.
We haven't got a clue what's going on over here. We got to wait a few weeks before we get anything, which when you're trying to book things, makes things pretty difficult to do. Fortunately, though, we didn't run any no crowd shows.
Okay.
To be honest, I saw some promotions do that. All credit to them for doing it and doing it safely, doing it correctly. But I don't think they didn't look great.
It's an odd. Yeah, I had a real uncomfortable feeling from some of them. Some of them were brilliant. You kind of you could forget there wasn't anyone there, and then some of them were really. I feel sorry that they're having to do this almost, but fair play to them for trying.
Yeah.
But would it have been better just to kind of leave it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Like because we don't own a ring, we'd have to hire, say, the ring. So obviously that costs. Maybe people were working these shows for free. If there's no income coming in, I don't see how it could work from a financial perspective. But we'd have to book some sort of hall, which would have probably not been possible in Wales anyway, because literally everything was shut down. Like even community centres were closed, weren't they?
Right.
So I don't really know how. Perhaps it was slightly different in England, but in Wales, I don't see how.
I can't remember. I sort of put my head in the sand through it all. So just tell me, people tell me when I can leave the house. That's pretty much where I went. So
yeah, it's probably better way to be than trying to make a wrestling show work when it's just got no way of actually doing it.
No.
We didn't run any no fans shows. Being the optimist, I started talking to talent in about March of this year to try and book an October date, which would have been our second show, ultimately be our second show, Girls Night Out. At the time, we didn't really know what was going on, but I think by that time, the vaccines were starting to happen. I thought, like, there's only so long that things can't run for. And so we booked up some of the talent. So it was mostly people who were on or had been given some dates before lockdown.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was done with the if you get a message off someone else for this date, can you just give me a shout? And however Wales is looking at the time, we'll discuss it from there. So a lot of the second show was booked up before the first show.
Right.
Which was strange. The first show back was booked up pretty hastily. So it was the start of July or mid-July that all of a sudden Wales was back open, out of nowhere. I thought, well, I want to run a show. Because Carnage had done had done similar. So they booked up the show, advertised it, done very well promoting it, not knowing if they'd be able to run or not. So I thought, right, well, they're coming back. Other Welsh wrestling are back. I reckon we could get a show booked, promoted, get a crowd in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, just go for it. 'Cause I always like 6 weeks to promote a show. Anyway, I think more than that, people get tired and don't. And like less than that, I think it's then a rush.
Yeah. Okay. Give yourself a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we booked. I think in a space of like 2 or 3 days, the card was sorted as much as we thought it was at the time. Posters into print, venue booked, everything, and we were up and running again.
So there we go. So what was the end result then for that show? I mean, you know, as hastily as you say it was put together, I guess it was a success. Were there parts of it that you took away that, okay, you know, you definitely wanted to improve upon for the next one, or did you know that you'd put out a stronger show for the second one?
Yeah, I think overall the first was a good result. We sold about 160 tickets. We had about 140, 145 in through the door, which was the most we'd ever had, and was probably on par with a lot of the UK promotions as well at the time. In terms of what went well, the run up to the show did not go well. We had an issue with, as I mentioned earlier, so we had to replace someone. Then we had to replace their replacement because we had things brought to our attention about them. So that was quite stressful. We had people drop out, which is just the way the world is at the moment. And we also had an issue with our ring hire on Thursday when the show was on Sunday. So that was a particularly fun day as well. Wrestling rings aren't that hard to get hold of to hire. But if you're in a hall with a low ceiling and you need a low set ring, there's not that many of them around, and there's even less of them around at short notice as well. But
you can't really have a wrestling show without a ring, can you? So I can imagine
it's kind of important to the whole thing, isn't it? Like it's kind of needed. But yeah, we got one, which was good. But yeah, things to improve. Ultimately, there was things about the show didn't like. We overrun a little bit on some matches, which meant the main event, it was a battle royal for the championship. Originally, I wanted to do like the AEW Casino Battle Royal thing, just to make it a little bit different. Didn't have time for it, so it was all in one go.
Right.
We didn't have any helpers either, so I think I was on the door letting people in, when I was also on the cards in a match as well. Right. So I was kind of limiting what I was able to do, say in my match as such, because I didn't really have I'm not at the level where I can just call it in the ring or anything. I need a bit of a structure. Yeah. And likewise, D was in a similar spot as well, so he was doing the music for the whole show apart from his match. Right. So that was pretty hectic. We sorted that out for the second show. We actually had some helpers down, which was awesome. And just need to make things just smoother, really. I think the second one was a lot better from that side of things. It didn't overrun so much, apart from when one of the boards in the ring came up. So that put like a 10-minute delay on also. But what can you do? You can't really account
for that sort of thing. No.
But in terms of like quality of people, so on the first one back, we had Chuck Mambo and TK Cooper down. I'd wanted them on shows, so they were booked up for the March show that got postponed. So that was good to have them down. We had Man Like Therese on as well, who is an absolute star in the making. He's not signed up.
I have heard his name increasingly recently. Yeah, so he's definitely going to be one that I'm going to be looking at a bit.
Yeah, he's awesome. We had Rufio down as well. He was really, really good. I wasn't that familiar with him. in truth, but he was like a last minute replacement as well, and
Okay.
he was awesome. So like in terms of like match quality, I think it was solid. Due to an injury, we had LK Mazinga down as well.
Okay.
So he's relatively local, like he only lives about 40 minutes or so away. But he's getting on like progress shows on the network as well now.
Oh
So
wow.
that was a bit of a coup
Steal.
as well, to have
Yeah.
a WWE multiple WWE network guys on
Awesome.
the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, the second show then, it's just bigger and better. Overall, it was smoother. I think the matches overall were better as well. The timings were sharper, and it just flowed a lot more. And I think, in truth, I think some of the matches we had were probably as good as anything you'd see in the UK scene as well.
Yeah.
Like we had Joel Redman against our champion Martin Grant, which was a great match. It's going to be uploaded, but it's premiered, set to be premiered on our YouTube channel, and a few other matches from the show as well are on it, and it stands up. Like the show stands up against anything. We had a really good crowd as well.
I saw the pictures actually. Yeah, very very impressive. Crowd and setup and everything. It looked like for it to be officially your second show, for it to look like that was brilliant. Whatever is happening up in Wales at the moment, between yourselves and Carnage, and it's spread the love almost. I know there's a lot going on, in England and everything, but even more of that, even more new promotions that are exciting is those two. Would be fantastic. It's
like the crowd we had, like 225 people, like actually in. Like there's not that many in the UK who were getting that.
No, that's a fantastic achievement. And I'd seen things about the show prior to, again, really knowing much about you guys, mainly because of the guys that you had, because Joel Redman and Echo Reed from Reach, I had them both on the show. I'm doing a little similar thing with Reach at the moment, so I know you had LA Taylor up there, and you're reaching out to all these promotions, helping each other out almost by kind of, it's giving the talent another outlet, to get noticed as well. So, for the shows that you've got coming up, are there anyone in particular that you're, not letting any secrets out of the bag, but anyone that have you got a wish list going for future shows of people that you would like?
I have. They're probably on the wish list of people in promotions everywhere. So it'd be great to have Doug Williams on the show. I think he would be awesome for the show. I'm quite interested in what's happening with Ring of Honor as well.
I know. I was going to ask. Yeah, it's a bit. I haven't seen, the only report I saw is what came out a few days ago. There was speculation as to whether they're folding or whether they're just kind of rebranding. What could that mean for you guys if all this talent became available?
Well, they obviously got some. They have got people from the UK on their books. So whether they're still over here, and a few of them are getting bookings in some promotions anyway. So that would be interesting to see if we could get some of them on. Likewise, it'd be great if we could get to a stage where perhaps you could have some imported talent as well. If we could, they'd obviously have to be right for us and fit into to make the right match. But there's so much good talent in the UK as well. Like, I know I mentioned Doug Williams, but there's people who could really add a lot to the show, like Cara Noir as an example. I think he'd be phenomenal to have on, and some like a Chris Ridgway as well would bring something quite different to the show. And just other talent, like they don't necessarily need to be a top name to make an impact. So as an example, I'll say Rufio that we had in wasn't necessarily a top name as such, but he slotted it into the match, he added to it, and he made the show better. So people who can do that is someone that I'm interested in.
I don't think we're at a stage now where you have to, again, I don't know, 15 years ago, whatever, local wrestling promotions were probably more reliant on having a big name to get the crowds in. I think British wrestling's got to that point where every promotion has got their own merit. You know, they're bringing their own crowds in on their own stars. You know, they're bringing a few people in from other promotions, but they're making their own now as well. And you know,
Yeah, that's the safer way to go about it, isn't it? Because what
yeah,
we want to have at Slammasters is, say, you call 4 or 5 people that you know are on the show, and you know if they're on, it's going to be worth paying to see. I think in the early days, we're going to have to keep bringing in people to have matches with them. But ultimately, the local guys are the stars.
Yeah.
So we want, if anyone comes in, they're going to be not having their matches between themselves unless something goes horribly wrong. We have to adjust it on the day.
Yeah.
But the idea would be, so on the first show we had TK and Chuck Mambo in, so they worked the local team of High and Mighty. So then High and Mighty get the rub off them, and they become more of stars than perhaps they were in the eyes of people initially. There's so much good talent in the UK. I think names from outside probably do help with sales initially.
Yeah.
Because I have noticed it when we put things up. We get sales from places not necessarily in the immediate area.
Okay. Yeah.
So in my opinion, that's probably because of names people recognize. But then if you can get them to come down, they can then supplement, say, the local fans. And then obviously there'll always be elements. We do get a lot of, say, families in our crowd. And there's probably a lot of people who just say, "Oh, wrestling, cool. We'll take the kids." So like to combine it all, I think that's all what's helped us get some pretty solid numbers.
I was going to ask actually, because the wrestling demographic, I think, is so varied now compared to what it was certainly when I first got into it when I was a kid. Have you got a particular sort of target audience that you tailor your shows for, that you're planning to tailor your shows for?
Yeah. So my ambition is to be the promotion that, should a parent have to take their kids, they will choose a Slammasters show because the kids enjoy it and the in-ring is good enough to keep their attention.
Okay.
So
that's fair enough.
That's kind of the goal. So it's a family-friendly show, but it's something that, say, the adults can also enjoy as well. And say and there's enough there for, say, your hardcore independent wrestling fan to also want to come along, because even though there's kids in the crowd, it's not pantomime. It's solid wrestling, but it is something that everyone can enjoy. It's quite safe. There's no tables, there's no chairs, there's certainly no explosive barbed wire. Or can you get explosive barbed wire? Probably not, but you know.
They'll think of it. Someone somewhere to
try. It's a nice, safe show.
Cool. Yeah, because we've got a like a local sort of theme park, quite a big one, just down the road here. And I know last year or just before the lockdown, their sort of summer show, the spring show, was a wrestling show. You know, they've got a tent set up and everything, and they have all these shows in there. And I missed it before lockdown came along, and then that was it. The show had run its course. But I think those kind of things are starting to become even more popular now. There's a whole other audience out there that doesn't necessarily have to make a decision to buy a ticket, but if you're at those sort of events, you know, you can, all of a sudden you've got families who can just stop by, have a great time, and then they can look for other opportunities, I guess, like yours, to extend that. That's cool.
I'd agree with that. That would be something I'd be interested in. So I did have a chat with a few festivals for the summer. So this would have actually been before our return show. 2 were interested. It was just quite late in the day because no one really knew what was going on. So hopefully we can get something for next year. It'd be really good to try and get on something, because as you say with that example, people like watching something different, and obviously NXT would always do very well at download as well. Like maybe a more adult oriented music fest, for example. It could work. Obviously we're in the position where we could tailor the talent to the audience as well. quite a few, say the regulars could easily work an older audience, and likewise they can work a younger audience. But perhaps that would be the kind of show where maybe you would bring in someone that you may not want to bring in for like a family show, just because their act is a little bit more geared towards an older. So yeah, we could do that. Like that's the really good thing about it being independent. You can book who you want.
Exactly.
Realistic, as long as they're willing to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, you can open doors like that. I suppose you could have almost like two rosters, couldn't you, to do certain shows. Back in the 90s. Now I love. I'm in a couple of Facebook groups that share all these old house show cards for like WWF and everything that were happening on the same day, and they split the roster in two. Content was pretty much the same, but they had two teams go out, different parts of the country. And I always thought that's such a, if you can do that, that's such a smart way of doing it, because you can be in two places at once. Granted, it takes a lot to get there, but you gotta have something to aim for, and so a couple of final sort of questions on the promotion front that have always interested me, I suppose. So what do you feel is the most important thing as a promoter that you want to offer, that you can offer, that sets you aside from other promotions around you?
Well, I think what we're aiming for really is going to ultimately be the unique selling point, which would be the family friendly with a really, really solid in ring, which can appeal to the parents and the independent wrestling fans as well. I think we are certainly getting there with it. I'd like to think that after the second show back, when we had that really good crowd, I'd like to think it'll be a really easy sell when we return there. Yeah. Because we had loads of really good feedback on the show, and not necessarily just from the kids as well. It was from the parents. It was from the pockets of fans who were probably there to see the likes of Joel Redman, who were there to see the likes of MLD as well, and then something. And then we are a promotion that wants to as well promote women's wrestling as well. And I've got a 5-year-old wrestling mad daughter, and the first show that we had back, due to a few things, we didn't have any women on the show, and she was gutted. And I watched the show back, I had the footage back today, and you can see that how the females in the crowd react to the women's match in comparison to the men's matches. Like it's something that I really want to be part of the show. We've got a women's champion as well now, Mariah May. So we've got the belt. So she's got at the moment to do some promo work with it. And there's not that many promotions in Wales where they women's champion.
No.
So I think that can help us stand out a little bit as well. Yeah. So if we can have women on the show, really, really treat much like WWE and Impact have, treat it as a really big aspect of the show. I'm quite keen on that. Treat it as big as, say, the Slammasters championship.
I was going to say
so that's helped us stand out.
Such a revolution in the last, I don't know how many years, but women's wrestling, where when I grew up with it in the mid to late 90s, it was just a joke. It was, it was the bit of fluff in the middle of the show. Now it really is, a force to be reckoned with. So, fair play.
I think in Wales the only promotion that's got a women's champion is Exposure. Okay. So they, out of about potentially 10 plus promotions in Wales, there's 2 of us with a women's champion.
So you've got the scope to attract a lot of the women's wrestlers from across the UK, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool.
Yeah, so it was so we had to bring in as you mentioned earlier, like an Echo Reed and Ellie Taylor. That was their first time in Wales, I believe. I might be wrong about that. I'm sure they said that was the first time they'd wrestled in Wales.
Right.
As we've got the women's championship, I'd like to think that would offer us more credibility than just saying, oh, we'd like to bring you in for a match.
Yeah, quite.
Whereas we could say now, we've got the women's championship. We're really keen on making this perhaps the most prestigious championship in Wales initially for women, and then hopefully further afield as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that would mean we can attract good talent.
Absolutely.
Perhaps, hopefully for that side of it.
Yeah.
So that, in addition to us offering a really strong in-ring product, but something that everyone can enjoy. I'm not interested in hardcore stuff at all.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I was never massively into that as a fan, to be fair. It was entertaining for a little bit, but then I just kind of I yearned for just the normal, straightforward, competitive in-ring match.
What's wrong with the wrist lock, right?
Exactly. And just finally,
and I've been on some shows with like hardcore stuff as well, and like people find it uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I've been on some shows, and all of a sudden someone's going through a table, and like people don't really want to watch it. Like, no. It's a bit odd.
Is that from the fan point of view, or is that the guys that are involved as well? What's the
I think attitude? A bit of everyone, really.
Yeah.
Why? Like,
yeah,
why?
exactly.
Like if you're into that stuff, all credit to you. And if as a worker, and if you like to do it, great. But we wouldn't be having it on a Slammasters show.
That's fine. I mean, that's one thing I don't think that's going to turn people away at the door if you promote that. So
exactly.
And just finally, as through your career as a performer, as an in-ring performer, the promotions that you've worked for. Now, not to name names here, I'm just intrigued. When you were sort of developing ideas for your own promotion, or since when you've been running it, have you experienced some like pitfalls of issues from a promotional front that you want to avoid, that you pointedly have seen happen because you've been around them, but you said yourself, I don't want that to happen to me, or I don't want to do that?
More happy to share. So we obviously aren't into if you work these guys, you can't work with us. With the amount of promotions in Wales, that could become a thing, but not because we don't want people. It's because you might need to try and make your show stand out or be a little bit different roster-wise compared to whoever's 10 minutes down the road. But it's certainly never going to be a blanket. Well, if you work these places, you're not working here. So that's something which goes on that we'd always avoid. Other things as well that we don't really like is like, I wouldn't want to put a show on the same day as someone if I can help it. That goes on. That happened to us on our first show back in 2019. For whatever reason, a place that we knew as well,
right,
for whatever reason, thought, right, we'll put something on when you put it on. They ended up with like 10 people in the crowd, so
oh, there you go. More for them.
And you think like, so we wouldn't want to do that. We'd like to stick to our own area as well. There are things where out of nowhere people put shows on almost out of, some people could say it's spite. Like I totally get where like someone would put a show on and then I know they want to expand 10-15 minutes down the road as an example. And I think that's perfectly fine, and it makes sense too, because it's on your road. It's just when someone goes like an hour and a half out of their way to just cause problems. Like there's absolutely no need for it.
No.
So it would I'd avoid doing that at all times as well. And we've got a fairly nice base where we are. There's decent space between venues which we could potentially work in without interfering what anyone else is doing as well. So there's absolutely no need to tread on toes or anything like that. So basically we'd avoid blocking people from working places, avoid stepping on toes, and ideally not run on the same day as people.
Fair dues. Sounds like sort of old school territory mentality is coming back. That's good.
Well, there's so many in Wales, you kind of need it. Because like in the space of about an hour's drive, potentially there's like 10 or 11 promotions.
You always sort of concentrated around the same kind of area, because Wales is quite big. There's obviously some areas that that are
Yeah, I don't
untapped
think
at the
there's a
moment?
huge amount. Yeah, like there's not a huge amount in North Wales, so there's probably
No.
an opportunity up there.
Mm,
And there might be one or so. Like, but between after Swansea, there's not a huge amount
okay.
up. But between say Swansea and Newport, with a bit of a detour in the
Yeah.
middle, is a
Quite a lot.
lot. Like, not everyone has come back yet, and I don't know if all of them are.
Right. Right.
It's just a lot. Like, it's a lot to try and make yourself stand out as well.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
only so much talent as well that
To go round.
to go right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see what the future holds. Like you say,
Yeah.
The strongest will survive, I suppose. And
Yeah.
from a fan's point of view, it's brilliant. I can imagine, sport for choice. But yeah, I think I can imagine the challenges that brings as a promoter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of them really would. The big one would be to try and make yourself stand out. Because if you've got shows every weekend, there's probably not much point having someone who's on three of them
No.
shows, is there? Like, if you wanna, unless they're going to attract an audience, which if they were, they probably would attract them to the shows they were on before you as well. So it's tricky.
Yeah. Listen,
It
John,
is tough. So hopefully not everyone will come back.
this
Who knows?
has been fantastic talking to you, mate. I feel like I could get inside your head a lot to learn what you know about this, because the whole backstage thing's always fascinated me. Apart from early dreams of wanting to, as I was growing up, wanting to be a wrestler, or whatever, which never happened. More the what goes on behind the scenes has fascinated me, which is why I've really enjoyed delving into, all you guys that are out there doing it.
Yeah, good.
But sort of just to, before we finish and before I give you the floor to plug the hell out of what's left of Slammasters and yourself, just jumping back into your fan self. So a couple of questions I like to sort of finish off with, just to give us an idea of how your mind works as a wrestling fan. So one that's really just sort of come to me recently. This is one of my favorite times of the year. Survivor Series, one of my favorite of the big events, or used to be. Have you got any particularly fond or favorite Survivor Series memories or events that you like to go back to even now?
It's not a traditional Survivor Series event as such, but I really like the Deadly Game tournament of '98. I
watched that yesterday, and I hadn't seen that for years, and I completely forgot how good that was.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
I was very much I was a stalwart for the traditional Survivor Series concept, and I hated it when they broke that up. But I forgot the story and the drama that went through that one. It was fantastic.
Yeah, if you liked it, it's worth digging out one of Vince Russo's old podcasts, and he basically broke down everything that they did with The Rock on the run up to it as well.
Right.
But it was like he likened it to The Sixth Sense, where basically the whole film is screaming at you. I won't give the actual spoiler in case no one's ever seen it.
Yeah.
Like they should have. It was like the late 90s. But basically, it's showing you the ending all the way through, and that's what they did. Like all the way through, you could see like even then, like Rock was attacking Vince, he wasn't, and like it was so well done, like the whole thing.
Okay.
So yeah, it's worth if it is still available, it's worth having a listen to. But I think that, and just the flow of it's really it was a really good one. Other Survivor Series, a lot of them merged into one, but I would have thought the Invasion era as well would probably had a ridiculously strong card, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
That would be 2001, the 2001? WCW, where the WCW folded. They had the potential, didn't they? Again, this is a show that if I've got one podcast ever left to do, it is the one to talk about the Invasion and why it went wrong. That Survivor Series could have been, I mean, it was good on paper, but it could have been so much more.
Yeah,
because you had so much to, you really could have finished that strong, and it just, for me, anyway, that's another 2 or 3 hour show I've got there to go through. That.
And what about the Elimination Chamber one? Would that have been 2002 or
that was two? Is that the one where Shawn Michaels won the world title?
Yeah,
I have a feeling that was 2002. I can't remember 2002, 2003. The 2002 springs to mind. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I've only ever seen that once. I'm trying to track it down. I don't have the network, so I've not been able to go back to it. But I was a massive Shawn Michaels fan when I was growing up. It was odd to see him come back because I kind of thought, should you be doing this? But then seeing him
not in the brown tights as well.
I know it was a bit odd, wasn't it? Yeah. But seeing him with the big gold, that was quite a cool moment, I suppose.
Yeah.
Quite a cool moment. Okay. Final question, probably the one that people hate me asking, but I love asking this on the spot. Your wrestling Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Who would be on it?
Is that 4? That's 4.
It is
4 people.
Yeah, 4.
Okay. Bret Hart. Because do I have to explain why? I can explain why.
I don't think you have to explain why for Bret Hart. I'm with you on that.
No, that's fair. I'll probably apply the same logic to Bret though as the others. So Bret, he could work heel, he could work face, he could talk, he could do everything.
Yeah.
You could probably even get a half good match out of me, like you know, and I suck. So Bret on that as well. They wouldn't be wrestling as we know it without Hulk Hogan. Likewise, Ric Flair. And what about, to be slightly controversial, John Cena?
I knew you were going to say that.
As he carried WWE for about 10 years when it was nothing, when it was certainly not cool. So
I think all the fans were screaming they hated him in that, but what did they do? They tuned in every week. Yeah. You know, so yeah.
And his matches actually become really good as well. The only one I'd consider trading him out for CM Punk, but only on the basis that because Punk worked, if Punk didn't work in WWE, you probably wouldn't have had NXT, you wouldn't have had a Daniel Bryan, you probably wouldn't have had an AJ Styles appear in WWE ever.
True.
But John Cena ultimately carried WWE for so long, so he gets the nod.
I like that. No, that's fine. That's fine. I cannot argue with that at all. And
waiting for the hate to come towards me now.
Don't worry. Well, I've had that many variations on it. It's fantastic. I just love to see how people's minds work because I've sat there and I've seen so many debates on Facebook about this as if there can only ever be one. And I'm kind of thinking everyone's gone through this with their own opinions on it anyway throughout the years. You know, your own experience of wrestling is based on what you enjoy. So, you know, mine's completely different. Mine probably changes every single time I wake up. So
like how could you not include how could you not include the Undertaker? But I didn't.
No,
it's probably the most successful gimmick ever, and he's just not on there.
This is what I love about this because when you sit there, you go with your gut feeling first, and then you start. No, well, what about it? I can't go with that. You know, there isn't possible to just have 4, but you know, I like it. So
perhaps based on what we learned about on Dark Side of the Ring, Ric Flair can get the boot, and we'll put the Undertaker in.
There we go. Okay.
There we are.
I like your justifications.
Yeah.
Giving it a lot of thought. Listen, John, thanks so much again, mate. And you know, before you go, I think you've managed to convince a lot of people, you know, as to why they should come and see a Slammasters show. But let everyone know where they can find you, where they can find Slammasters, where are you on social media, where are you in person, where can they find you?
Okay, so on socials, we are Slammasters Wrestling. So that's on Facebook and Instagram. We have got a Twitter, but I'm not a big fan of Twitter. Every time I've tweeted, I've basically had to drop someone from a show. So I try not to not to tweet too much.
Fair enough.
We have got a website as well, which is slammasterswrestling.com. That's going through some work. So I've just added a bit like a roster page. It's got all the results to our shows where we sell tickets as well. We haven't got any dates confirmed for next year yet, but if you have a look on Facebook and Instagram, as soon as we got them, we'll put them on there. And if for whatever reason you're interested in me as a talent, I'm Necrophago Lucha on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. And are you popping up anywhere else as Necrophago before a Slammasters show, or?
I'm part of the Carnage roster. So I'll be working on their shows. I'm working for Exposure Wrestling in December, and I'm also on the Royal Imperial show in November as well.
There you go. Ideal. Listen, thank you again. You're welcome back at any time. You know, I'd love to, you know, when you've got your shows lined up for next year, come back on. I'd love to,
I'd love to.
discuss it, see what the new year brings, and all the best for all the performances under the mask. I'll no doubt be keeping up with that. I'll very much firmly behind Carnage and everything they're doing at the minute. So, but so thank you again, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.